Many people know the story of Hitler's rise to power through political charisma and nationalist rhetoric. But what lies behind the scenes? Welcome to Bad Stories, where we uncover the sinister secrets of history. Today, we look at how Hitler used deception and manipulation to get to the pinnacle of power while leaving his real intentions in the shadows. Now let's delve deeper into the political maneuvers and manipulations that helped Hitler consolidate his power. In the early 1930s, Germany was plunged into economic crisis and political instability following its defeat in World War I. Hitler and the Nazi Party skillfully used this moment to express popular discontent and propose their radical solutions. Through propaganda and media manipulation, they created an image of Hitler as the savior of the nation. Goebbels' propaganda machine not only idealized Hitler, but also created a cult of personality around him, presenting him as the man who could restore Germany to its greatness and power. Hitler also used democratic institutions to legalize his dictatorship by having elections controlled by the Nazi Party and using legislative changes to consolidate his power and suppress political opposition. These manipulations and political intrigues not only helped Hitler reach the political summit, but also laid the foundations for his authoritarian regime, which became one of the darkest pages in the history of the 20th century. The next step is how these actions shaped the political reality of the time and influenced international relations and the future of Germany. After the end of World War I, Germany was plunged into chaos. Economic crisis, political instability, and mass discontent created ideal conditions for a charismatic and ruthless leader to rise to power. Taking advantage of these circumstances, Hitler began to build his political career. Hitler understood the power of words and visual images. With the help of Joseph Goebbels, he created a powerful propaganda machine that portrayed him as the savior of the nation. A massive campaign in the press and at rallies raised his popularity and created a cult of personality. But propaganda alone was not enough. Hitler resorted to political intrigue and used force to eliminate his enemies. One of the most striking examples was the Night of the Long Knives in 1934, when he ordered the assassination of SA leaders to eliminate potential rivals and pacify the army. Hitler also used democratic institutions to legalize his dictatorship. Elections held under the tight control of the Nazi Party helped him consolidate his power. He manipulated laws and institutions to gain extraordinary powers that allowed him to rule the country without restriction. To finally assert his power, Hitler launched a massive repression against anyone who might oppose him. Political opponents, journalists, and activists were arrested and sent to concentration camps. Any dissent was brutally suppressed. One of the most brutal and decisive moments in Hitler's consolidation of power was the Night of the Long Knives. From June 30th to July 2nd, 1934, Hitler orchestrated a series of political assassinations targeting SA leaders, including Ernst Röhm. The SA, or stormtroopers, played a key role in the early advancement of the Nazi Party, but over time, they began to threaten the stability of the regime. Röhm and other SA leaders began to demand more influence, which became a threat to Hitler. Taking advantage of rumors of a conspiracy, Hitler ordered the arrest and execution of hundreds of SA leaders as well as other political opponents. This event solidified his control over the Nazi Party and army, eliminating the threat from within. Despite the brutality of the Night of the Long Knives, Nazi propaganda skillfully presented these events as necessary measures to protect the state. Public opinion was carefully controlled, and many Germans perceived these actions as a fight against internal enemies. Nazi propaganda portrayed Hitler as a determined leader who would stop at nothing to defend Germany. This image further strengthened his popularity and support among the population. Another important aspect of Hitler's consolidation of power was his manipulation of the legislature. Once in power, he used his position to change legislation and establish a dictatorship. In March 1933, the Authorization Act was passed, which gave Hitler the ability to issue laws without parliamentary approval. This decision effectively ended democratic rule in Germany and allowed Hitler to establish a totalitarian regime. The Nazis continued their policy of subjugating all state and social institutions, including the courts, police, and press. Hitler became the supreme leader with absolute power. To finally assert his power, Hitler began a massive repression against anyone who might oppose him. Political opponents, journalists, activists, and even former associates were arrested and sent to concentration camps. Any dissent was brutally suppressed. This created an atmosphere of fear and terror that allowed Hitler to rule the country without resistance. These political maneuvers and intrigues allowed Hitler to become an absolute dictator. But his rule led to disastrous consequences for Germany and the world. Millions of people died and countries were destroyed. After the war, the Nazi perpetrators were brought to justice, but the memory of those horrors remains. This history serves as an important lesson about what political manipulation and the concentration of power in one hand can lead to. The story of Hitler's rise to power is not only a lesson about violent ambition, but also a warning about how easy it is to manipulate the masses and subjugate democratic institutions to one's own ends. Remember that critical thinking and the defense of freedoms are key elements in preventing such tragedies from happening again. Keep an eye out for Bad Stories, where we will continue to unravel the mysteries of history. Subscribe to our channel not to miss new, exciting investigations. Don't forget to like and share with your friends.